You know what I find interesting? That even though mankind is, historically speaking, experiencing a period in time that is pretty mellow in terms of religion and serving God, we are unprecedented with regards to how fast we are working to progress ourselves forward. Why do I find this interesting? Well, though we are not necessarily trying to find our purpose for existence, which usually entails giving up a normal human life and dedicating ourselves entirely to a higher being, we are for some reason becoming so committed and so steadfast in tasking that it is taking over how we live and excluding space for people to simply exist. We say that we are dedicating our lives to the betterment of mankind, but it is the way we are going about this that is worsening the conditions of our individuality, just as, I would argue, religion often has the ability and tendency to do. But I will return back to this thought later. I have this recurring concept in my mind that I've considered since I was a very little kid. I always seem to gravitate towards it, no matter the fact that I will only get older. It is simply pondering what I would do if I could freeze time. I'm sure everyone has asked themselves this, and possibly pursued an interesting conversation with themselves. Now, though I believe myself to have more of a realistic mindset, I engage in this particular subject wholeheartedly and without the, yeah, but it's never going to happen, thought popping into my head every couple seconds. So what would I do if I could freeze time? I have a stark memory of asking myself this when I was younger. I was on the ride home from a friend's house, and we had just watched the very last episode of Futurama, the one where Fry and Leela grow old together in a world frozen in time. Staring into space, the general direction being out the car window, I decided to make a list of all the things I'd want to accomplish in, for the sake of this game and my list, 24 hours. I recall some things I put on that list. Flights to all my favorite or most desired places to visit, obviously having ignored the fact that I don't know how to fly a plane. Driving anyone's car I wanted to, though I suppose being around a bunch of frozen cars would make for some pretty brutal traffic. Running on top of those cars in my way, breaking stuff all around me, going into a market and eating whatever I wanted to without penalty, and displacing things so that the world would be in utter chaos when it unfroze. In my mind, I pictured that flow experience of myself in a frozen world as something phenomenal, something I longed to experience. I wanted the world to freeze, just in that moment, just for me. But the car kept rolling on, and buildings kept passing me by. I believe that it is important to say what if sometimes. I think that the world we grow up in today says that it wants us to dream largely and have engaged imaginations, but really only to a certain extent. How I see it is that we have built a society that doesn't want kids to become too attached to the concept of what if, because what if it consumes their minds and then they can't dedicate themselves to actual responsibilities? I believe that as we grow older, we are encouraged more to stay away from utilizing our free reign with imagination. That one's responsibility and reality weigh more in everyday life. Saying what if and taking oneself into a place of imagination is considered a waste of time or is deemed simply immature. But what if this is just being looked at the wrong way? Why can't, or to better phrase it, why don't people try to allow imagination and responsibility to coexist on a daily basis? I believe that imagination is inherent to us as human beings, and even more so a very special feature that we have. Thus, I believe that the world needs to better accommodate for imagination. I believe the world has become so obsessed with the idea of progress, so much so that it is hard to see whether that progress is positive or negative. Not to sound too dramatic, but we are snowballing with regards to humanity's general pace, and the effects can be seen right in this school, or any for that matter, as today's youth is being pushed ever harder to perform faster, understand quicker, and apply themselves earlier. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be driven. I see myself as someone who's driven and am certainly not against discovery and therefore progress. But what's the rush? What is it that we're driving towards? Whatever it is, we are pushing other aspects of our humanity out of the picture as a result. As I said before, I believe that imagination is central to our uniqueness. Seeing as how it is pretty quickly removed from our lives, I also believe that the world should reform itself so that we don't forget what it means to be human. Is there much that I can do about this on my own? I don't believe so. Just as religion and the idea of understanding why we exist has its own strong and influential pull, so does the idea of fulfilling tasks in order to feel as though one is advancing forward in any given direction and progressing. But I can keep imagination in my life and encourage it in the lives of people around me. Thus, I self-reflect as I ponder such concepts as what I would do if the world froze for 24 straight hours. No progress, no hustle, no rush. Everything within it frozen except for myself. I believe everyone should detach themselves from the whirring world of the present every once in a while, accept and embrace the possibilities of the what if, and not feel obligated to condemn themselves for thinking so miraculously out of worldly